Hello, my name is Jim Howard. I'm the Executive Director of Trinity Security Allies, where our ministry is your church's safety. We do a free monthly webinar, but I'm going to be in Marion, Iowa, working with one of the churches that we work with, Antioch Christian Church, next week. So I decided to record this and get it out to you. You can find other resources on our webpage at trinitysecurityallies.com, our YouTube page, and also our Facebook page. So I just got back from South Lake, Texas. We worked with Trinity Presbyterian Church. We did a full day seminar, church training seminar there. Great people that take church safety very serious. I got to visit relatives, old friends, met some new ones that I look forward to working with in the future. Now, the discussion always arises when we talk about church safety, about the use of force in a church. It is acknowledged that as safety team members, there is always a possibility of having to use force during an incident. The primary approach is to de-escalate the situation if feasible, though it is recognized that it may not be possible in every scenario. Now, every state has its own use of force laws. You should review these laws, know them, understand them, so that you can always know what your rights are in the case of a use of force. In Florida, we are governed by the state statute, Chapter 776, justifiable use of force, or use of force, or use or threaten use of force in defense of a person. Now, a person is justified in using or threatening to use force, except deadly force, against another person when and to the extent that that person reasonably believes that such conduct is necessary to defend himself or herself or another against the other's intimate use of unlawful force. A person who uses or threatens to use force in accordance with this subsection does not have a duty to retreat before using or threatening to use force. Now, the second part of this is a person is justified in using or threatening to use deadly force if he or she reasonably believes that using or threatening to use such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or herself or another, or to prevent the imminent commission of a forcible felony. Now, this kind of covers us as far as when we talk about having to use force inside of church. If we feel it is necessary because there is a threat, we are justified by Florida State Statute 776. Now, like I said, check with your state and make sure you understand what your use of force laws state. Now, when we start talking about church safety team members and incidents that can happen on church property, we have to understand that we have a greater chance of having to use physical force than we do a firearm. That's just something that I try to teach every time I go into a church, is that this is a bigger possibility than having, like we said, use a firearm. Now, in each of these pictures, physical force was used to stop the disruption of the church service. Physical force can be anything from having to put your hands on a person to escort them out of the church to to physically subdue a person. Anytime you have contact with someone to move them along will be considered physical force. After this incident is over and everybody is safe, the first thing that you must do is contact local law enforcement and make a report of what had just happened. Do not wait for law enforcement to show up and talk to you because the person that you had to move outside the church has gone home and made the call to the local law enforcement and said that you have manhandled them and forced them out of the church. You always, if you have to touch anybody in any sort of way, you need to call and make a police report at that moment in time. There's always the discussion of non-lethal weapons. We get into these all the time. I think pepper spray is great for self-defense, but not in a church. The spray is an aerosol and will move throughout the church, and people with respiratory issues, like your elderly and children without fully developed lungs, will have issues. I also get a lot of talk about gel and foam. People send them over to me all the time saying, is this safe to use in our church? I have watched the demos, and in every one of them, I always see spray that comes off of the gel or the foam when they hit their target that they're shooting at. Now, most of these tests are done on people that are standing still or dummies that are not moving. These are not real life experiences. I'm just telling you right now, I wouldn't use any type of pepper spray inside of a church, inside of a confined building, especially where elderly or children could possibly be affected. Now we start to talk about tasers. Now, handheld tasers, you have to make physical contact. In other words, you have to get up against this person in order to use it. Now, we're trying to make, we're trying to get away from physical contact. This is something that we try to avoid. Now, probe firing tasers require some training. Yeah, they're legal in a lot of states, and I mean, they're not considered a firearm because of, the way that they're shot out of the taser. The probes are shot out of the taser, but I'm telling you right now, it requires some training. In the excitement of deploying the probes, you got to be careful where you aim. Hitting someone in the face or in the chest around the heart may cause you issues in court. A recent study out showed that tasers fail at least 40% of the time, which means you need to be prepared for another solution when faced with physical confrontations. Someone mentioned a collapsible baton. Please no, please no. With phone capturing video optics are really bad in that move. Somebody turning on and recording you hitting somebody with a collapsible baton is just not good optics for your church. So stay away from those. Now, then of course it always leads to firearms. I believe everyone has a right to carry a firearm, even in churches. Given the fallen world we live in, it's unwise to assume that an active shooter can't happen at your church. Even though we have a better chance of being struck by lightning than having an active shooter in the church, we cannot be naive. We must address not only protecting the church from external threats, but also the risk posed by untrained safety team members carrying weapons. And when I say untrained safety team members, this is where we start getting into things that we're going to address a lot more today. I continuously get asked about firearms qualification for safety team members. I have a real hard time with this. I have three different firearm training certifications. I have USCCA, I have the NRA, and I'm certified with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to train police officers. I work every month out at the academy working with police officers from other states that want to be Florida law enforcement officers. This is firearm training. I'm the lead firearm instructor in these classes. It is 2 days of extensive training that we do. Now, the first question I always ask is what qualification course are we talking about? A lot of people will say the FBI or the local state. Well, you have to understand that usually in those qualification courses, it's not just one day of walking out and shooting. It is usually over several weeks before you get to the qualification part. So now, then my second question is, who does the qualifications? Is it somebody in law enforcement? Is it somebody with a military experience? One time I talked with a church, I worked with a church for a while, and the guy who qualified everybody was a pilot. Now, trust me, he was a great guy. His heart was in the right place, but he trained pilots. And when I asked him where he got his qualifications from, he said the NRA. Now, NRA and USCCA have a lot of good courses, and I recommend them all the time. But I'm just trying to tell you, get away from the gun business. Churches need to stay away from this. So then it comes up with another interesting question that I ask, and I get a lot of churches that can't answer this. If your church allows volunteers, say ushers, greeters, or people that work in the parking lot to carry, do you require the same qualifications as the safety team? Now you go, well, they're not safety team people. Well, yeah, but if somebody comes up and starts to threaten them, like we've seen cases where people have had people come up and try to rob them in the parking lot, they have just as much right to protect themselves as the safety team has to protect people inside the church. So when we talk about this, are we requiring the same qualifications as the safety team? The other thing I look at is when an officer is involved in a shooting, training records may be called into court. This also means an instructor may have to testify. Understand, if you qualify somebody, there's a possibility that you could be brought into court if that person is involved in a shooting at your church and other people were injured. In, in civil cases, you could also be sued if the complainant feels you were negligent in your training. So I'm just going to say this again. I try to discourage firearm qualifications in church safety team members, but I'm going to tell you what I do recommend. Now, David Gibbs with the National Center for Life and Liberty created a document for churches for members who carry concealed weapons while on church property. I use this document and feel that every church should adopt it as part of its requirements of anyone who volunteers and carries on church property. This is not only including your safety team, but ushers and greeters who might carry. Now, the number one thing that David brings out is that you are responsible to know and obey the concealed carry laws of the state that you're in. I mean, that's just an easy one. But the second thing I like that he puts in this document is that the church says, we are not asking you to carry a weapon on church property. Churches, get out of the gun business. Put the responsibility of people carrying weapons back on the person carrying the weapon. Now, there's a lot of people that are going to disagree with me on this. That's fine. I don't care. Give me a call, send me an email. We can talk about it all the time. But when you get into certifying those carrying inside your church, I think you're opening yourself up to liability issues that you might not be ready to do. Now, one of the things I do when working with churches is just go out and shoot and enjoy the fellowship. When I'm going to Marion with Antioch Christian Church, that's one of the things that we're going to be doing this week. And I look forward to it. But I do not do qualifications. I do not do training. I show them some of the tricks that we have learned in law enforcement, some of the tactics that we use in active shootings or in an officer involved shooting. Some of the things that we do, we just go through basics like cover and concealment, not standing still in front of the target, reloading under some pressure, just the basics. Like I said, most people don't even carry an extra magazine with them, which I find that just, that's just a no-no. Always, always, always carry a second magazine with you. We get into friendly competition, which always adds to the stress of their capabilities. This also allows the team leader to see how his team handles a weapon, and they can make decisions if this person should get more training. Now, when we say get more training, make recommendations that your safety team members go to a reputable firing range and have them take some of their basic to advanced shooting courses. This, once again, takes a responsibility off the church and onto the team member himself to improve his shooting techniques. I'm always skeptical when people come up to me and say, "Hey, have you heard of this range offering church safety firearms training?" People call me all the time asking if I've heard about the company, what I think about this company, and I kind of have to be very careful on how I reply. Recently, I spoke with Adam Shrider from Gatekeeper Defense Training about their church safety team firearms training program. Though initially skeptical, about combining church safety and firearms, I asked Adam some hard questions that I'm sure at first he thought I was a jerk. But listening to Adam's testimony and how he emphasizes that using a weapon is the last resort in any church situation, I can recommend his program because of our conversation and his commitment to just helping church safety team members with their firearm training. Now, Adam is out in Orlando, Florida. I will put his website in our post. He is a USCCA certified firearms instructor. His company is called Gatekeeper Defense Training. And as I said, I had a good conversation with him and I felt very comfortable with recommending him to churches that are over in the Orlando area that may want to get together and go over and take his courses. On Sunday, February the 11th, 2024, a shooting occurred at Lakewood Church in Houston. The suspect entered the church with her 7-year-old son. Suspect was carrying an AR-style rifle and a backpack. Inside the backpack, she had another weapon which she never used. FBI reported that the suspect fired over 30 rounds before she was shot and killed by an off-duty law enforcement officer working there part-time. Now, Houston Police Department has released all videos recovered from the shooting. You can go out on YouTube, do a search, and you can find it. It starts out with the chief of police from Houston talking about the situation. And it goes, like I said, goes through these videos. Now, I want to talk about this just for a little bit. Force Science did an article back in 2018 called The New Study on Shooting Accuracy. How does your agencies stack up? Researchers had analyzed 149 real-life officer-involved shootings recorded over a 15-year period by Dallas PD. In nearly half of these encounters, officers firing at a single suspect delivered complete inaccuracy. That is, they missed the target entirely. Other studies show from the earliest measurements in the 70s, a wide range have documented that police departments rarely ever achieve a 50% hit rate. Annual hit rates averages in large departments such as New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Las Vegas, for example, have typically ranged from 22 to 52% over the decades. They also point out, along with good marksmanship and firearms handling, a successful officer-involved shooting requires accurate shoot, don't shoot decision making, the ability to shoot at unpredictable and moving targets, and the ability to perform these skills within high stress circumstances. So let me explain something to you. We as church safety team members are behind the curve on this because we do not get the training that these other departments do. When we teach out at the equivalency training, that is where a person from another agency somewhere out of state of Florida has come to Florida, become a Florida law enforcement officer. A lot of times I ask them, officers who have come from small departments, how many times do they qualify a year? A lot of times they tell me one time a year, which tells me unless you're a person, an officer, a dedicated officer that goes out and shoots on his own, he only takes his firearm out one time a year to qualify. So if he's been with the department 3 years, that tells me he may have only shot 3 times. That is not good for when we get into these situations where they're unpredictable and moving targets and the ability to perform these skills under high stress circumstances. So speaking about the Lakewood Church shooting, we're going to go back to this. Police Activity YouTube channel, they took 2 cameras and split the screen so you can see Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission agent Adrian Herrera confronting the shooter. On the top, they placed the audio of one of the officer's body camera recordings, and laid it over the 2 videos. Herrera, in these videos, Herrera fired somewhere between 21 and 23 shots, hitting the suspect, looks like only twice. In the video, you can see the suspect put the AR-15 down on the ground and Herrera's rounds hitting the wall and the floor, which proves the point of the studies that in high stress situations, targets are missed. So do you think you're going to be any different? I don't think so. Now, Herrera's my hero because he confronted a person with an AR-15 and he had a handgun. And he went against this person with no body armor, it looks like, but just the handgun and the walls he was using for cover and concealment. But that round, that 223, could have pierced any of those walls and gone through any of that. So how would you work? Because I want you to go look at these videos. How would you handle this type of situation? Unless you are military or law enforcement, I really don't think you can answer that question. I can tell you right now, it's been a long time since I've been involved in any type of shooting, and I'm not for sure how I would respond to a person with an AR-15. So think about this. Think about this. So if you're going to carry, what do? We practice, we practice, we practice. The old saying is we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. Shooting is not cheap. It is expensive, and I understand that. I went out and personally bought a Glock 22 caliber that is the same size as the Glock 9mm that I carry every day and use it all the time because 22 ammunition is inexpensive and I can work on my techniques and my accuracy fairly inexpensive using my Glock 22. Now, that's something that you can think about. Get in with other people and go shooting. We were talking about it this week of forming a shooting club at our church, which I think is a great idea. It is a ministry. There's a lot of people that like to do this. So why not go with other church members, make it fellowship, make it a ministry, and go shooting every once in a while just for the practice, just to get close to other people, to have some friendly competition, but to do things that help you with your skills and your capabilities of using your weapon. Now, when we talk about we don't rise to the level of our expectations, I have something that I know I have, that gives me a slight edge over anything that I'm coming up against, and that's the Holy Spirit. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. That's 2 Timothy 1:7. I'm not an idiot, though. I know my limitations, and I know exactly what the Holy Spirit is going to give to me, and that is hopefully the power and love and self-discipline to know to do what I need to do in the case of an active shooter. I can do all things through him who gives me strength, Philippians 4:13. We just need to remember that when we get into situations like this, to lean in on the Lord before we go into battle. Where police departments rarely achieve a 50% hit rate, and hit rates average in large departments such as New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Las Vegas, for example. They have a typical range between 22% and 52%. Make it a recommendation that your safety team members go to a reputable firing range and have themselves and take some of their basic to advanced shooting courses. As I said, this takes the responsibility off the church and onto the team member himself or herself to improve his or her shooting capabilities. Listen, this recommendation right here could seriously save somebody's life. And use companies like Adams, who he himself is a member of his church safety team and understands the importance of practice and getting out of the lanes at a pistol range and doing some advanced training in an open environment. We are partners with USCCA, and we really love their training. And if you go out online, they do have training, firearms training in areas where you can sign up and go and take some of their classes. I would recommend. But when you go to these classes with the understanding that all you're trying to do there is just improve the way that you handle your firearm. Don't think that once you get finished with one of these classes, you now become Mild Bill Hickok or Jesse James. You don't. You don't. You just get more used to the weapon that you're using. Like if you were a carpenter, you would be using your hammer all the time. This is a tool. Understand, this is a tool. This tool can save lives, but you have to know how to use this tool and do it correctly so that you do not get yourself in a bind. I don't drive my car without car insurance, and I don't carry without some sort of protection, and I would recommend that to you. Since we partnered with them, they helped us out a lot in our training because their top-notch education, training, self-defense, and legal protection is for all responsible armed Americans. So go out, give me a call. Let's talk about this. I'll find you a rep in your area and you can talk to them about their insurance policy of use of force. Even though it may not be a firearm, it could be physical. They still protect you in case you end up in court. Once again, I'm going to recommend Adam's Gatekeeper Defense Training. It's a premier firearms academy dedicated to empowering civilians with essential skills. I think these places are very important. Their comprehensive courses include CCW, defense handgun, and church safety, are designed to prepare you for the real world situations in a supportive environment. They are led by USCCA certified instructors. They focus on enhancing your experience and confidence in firearms training. So reach out. I'm going to put his website in our post so that you can see it. Reach out, talk to Adam, tell him I sent you. One of the companies that we met in Texas, and I just am really excited about the partnership between us and Church Security Solutions. Jeff Kearnan, he puts together emergency plan suites. Now, this is a lot different from what we do. We just do training. And I put together some policies and procedures that I use for safety teams that are just down and dirty things to look at. But he puts together an emergency action plan suite that is fully compliant with FEMA and is supported by OSHA and the National Fire Protection Association for houses of worship in the United States. These plans have been carefully vetted and approved by insurance companies, governing boards, attorneys, and safety professionals, ensuring alignment with the national best practices. Implementing these plans can enhance safety, minimize liability risk, and reduce insurance claims, making them an essential resource for churches looking to strengthen their security measures. I would recommend if you're starting to put together one of these type of security plans for your whole church, I would contact him even if you have stuff to make sure that you don't have holes in your policies. So Church Security Solutions, we're also going to list his website in our notes, but contact Jeff. He's really knowledgeable. And the thing of it is he goes out and does research for what your state requires, which you may miss. Really good resource to have. Now, one of the things that Jeff does, and I really appreciate this while we're talking about partners, when he gets into talking about training your safety team on, how to do safety stuff, he recommends us. And these are the trainings that we are offering. We do personal safety training, which really is just not a church safety team training, but it is a training for every member of your church. It is to help protect them in the fallen world that we live in. We also do threat profiling, which is good for your church safety team, your ushers, your greeters, staff, so that when somebody walks into your church, you're able to spot that they're uncomfortable and somebody needs to go and talk to them so they can find out exactly what is going on in their life. They've either come to worship, they're new, they don't know where they're going. They may be somebody that is right in the middle of doing something that they may regret for the rest of their life. And aren't we supposed to administer to those people? And then, of course, they may be the wolf in sheep clothing. And we teach you how to spot these signs, these red flags, if you want to call it. And then we help you be the ambassador of the church that goes up and talks to this person and is able to help them in their walk. We also teach verbal de-escalation. Now, we've changed this up a lot, and we're using what we feel like are more biblical examples of verbal de-escalation. So we're really excited about this. What if that is a tabletop type scenario type training? I put something on the board, say, what if this happens at your church? And I expect you to respond to how you would handle it. Mental illness in the church, we're seeing so much more mental illness. We just had a situation last week where a guy we think, because of the way he was talking, was probably paranoid schizophrenic, just because everybody was against him. It was just fortunate for us that God was there with us, the Holy Spirit was there with us, and everything went really smooth. We also have our laser shot simulator, a shoot, don't shoot training that we offer. It's portable. We can carry it anywhere you want. We have taken it up to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a couple of times to work with Antioch there in Marion, and they really like it. So this time we're going to go up though and do actual live firearms training with them, or firearms fellowship, as I like to call it. Now, if you go to our website, Trinity Security Allies, we have free resources out there, and it's putting together a safety plan, developing a safety team, Sunday morning, what to look for, and carrying weapons in church. Now, we're going to be changing these a little bit because we're going to talk more about Jeff and his products. Because, like I said, seeing the thing that he did from Florida, it is a comprehensive plan that I was just blown away with. All right. So, not only do I have a cap that's for church safety and security, but I also talk about the world through a Christian lens. Now, you can go out and listen to some of our stuff on YouTube. Go and look for True Christian Talk. We kind of ran into problems with YouTube. We got kicked off twice and was about to be kicked off the third time. So we went to a safe environment called Rumble. If you've never heard of it, check it out. It's got a lot of good information out there, a lot of good videos, reels. And go to Rumble, like us, follow us. We do a live talk every week. And like I said, we talk about the world, looking through the world through a Christian lens. So come out, be a guest, be a host. If you got something you want us to talk about, contact me. Well, I want to come out and thank you. Myself, Wendy, and Jessica, we look forward to working with you, and we hope that we can help you in your church safety needs. All you need to do is you can contact me at jim@trinitysecurityallies.com. You can get on our website and fill out a form that we have, and we'll reach out to you and talk to you about your church safety needs. I really want to thank you for understanding that there is an importance of protecting the flock, but we have to be the ambassadors and expand the kingdom of God while protecting those that worship inside our church. Be safe out there, be blessed, and I'll talk to you soon.